Okay, Tampere Jazz Happening starts today, Thursday, with a special Estonian concert featuring 3 different Estonian bands. And we have Kadri Voorand with Mihkel Melgand as a duo, and Heavy Beauty represented here by Jaak Sooäär, guitar player, and also we have Kirke Karja with her quartet. So let's talk about Estonian jazz, the jazz scene in Estonia. Is it very cozy and tightly knit, or how would you describe it? Go ahead.
Estonian scene is growing.
Okay.
I think this is what we can say about Estonian jazz. That some decades ago we had quite few jazz musicians because of political reasons and maybe lack of educational possibilities. But now everything is possible, so we have more and more very good level, different musicians who want to express their music and art.
Could we say that Estonian jazz has some special features? I mean, that differentiate it from Finnish jazz scene, for instance.
I think we could. Well, for me, I wasn't born in that. I was born in those complicated times, but all my adult life I have spent in this free world.
Mm.
And I think that because of the fact that we don't have a long tradition of jazz, our jazz sounds different. It's not so much combined with the traditional jazz. So our jazz direction is going into so many directions that we dare to call jazz, that maybe in Finland you would not. So yeah, if you look at Estonian jazz festivals or jazz club evenings, then the music very often is just new music, improvisational new music. It could be folk, okay. It could be quite pop, it could be just very modern classical music. So it's of course we have the musicians that play traditional jazz,
right?
But this is not the normal case. We don't have too many of those.
Is the experimental or avant-garde side, is it like more than 50% or something?
No.
Oh, no, I wouldn't say
I think
that.
avant-garde is not a big part of it.
Okay.
But I think there's just all kinds of different
there are many different styles.
Yes. And if you ask what is Estonian jazz, then I think
Estonian jazz is just eclectic, doing whatever you want.
Different personalities.
Yes.
Right.
So I think it's in a way a good thing that people just create music what they want. Nobody tries to settle in a box, or if they do, then it's not. They're not probably even sure what box it is. So it's there's a certain level of freedom, I think, and I like it very much. Yeah.
That
so
sounds
yeah.
real good to me. Are there any stars in Estonian jazz so far?
Well, I think Soviet time we used to have stars in Soviet Union. Lempi
Okay.
Saarsalu and Tiit Paulus and Tõnu Naissoo. If we go to play in Russia nowadays, for example, and we are always asked how they are doing, and everybody knows them very well.
Okay.
Yes.
But the newer generations are kind of more equal.
I think so.
I think it's similar to what's happening everywhere, especially in Estonia. Estonia is so small, so and it's happening all across the world that there is just so much more artists than there was even 5 years ago. Not even to compare what was there 15, 20 or 30 years ago. Like you could ask the same question everywhere. But of course from Estonia, it's only 1,300,000 people. So to have a worldwide star, yes, we have stars, but I wouldn't call Arvo Pärt, a jazz musician, but
No,
in a way,
but he's definitely a
but
star.
he's definitely a star, the biggest
Yeah,
star we
yeah.
have in music.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't like put any jazz musician next to that level, I guess, not yet.
Maybe soon.
Why not?
Yes, definitely. Is it so? Is the jazz scene so closely knit that everybody kind of knows each other, of the players? I mean,
Yes, I think so.
Yes, yes.
I think it must make a very nice and cozy feeling generally if you are like friends, all of you.
Yes, I think so.
Yes, there's no, yeah. Well, we're all friends, and it's like very different from maybe a little bit bigger countries that there is no competition feeling in there. So if you just, want to become a jazz musician, then you're warmly welcomed, like welcome to the club, whereas there's so few of us.
Okay.
So it's like we're all excited if we have a new player in our field. So it's yeah, I think it's very nice environment.
You are probably now living, all of us are living the time where you have new bands and artists coming up all the time.
Yes, sure.
Quite a lot. Okay, let's go to Kadri personally. Estonia always has a very long and strong singing tradition. So what does that tradition mean to you personally?
Well, personally, I was grown up in this folk music environment, and since I was standing on my 2 feet, I've been playing and singing with my mom's folk ensemble, and mostly Runo laul,
Okay.
Runo kind
Poems
of, yeah,
and chants.
Yes, so it's a very normal thing to me, and since childhood I had a very strong sense of that. But of course, choir singing is also a very big part of me, because I've been singing in choirs until the university early years, and so singing tradition in Estonia is very dear to me, and I think I will do what I can to sustain it.
Right.
And this year, and also probably next time when we have the big song festival, the choirs are singing also a couple of my songs. So those kind of things mean so much more to me than I think anybody else would understand who would look at it from outside.
Right.
So it's a very strong feeling of keeping the tradition in Estonia. Yes.
Well, why is it? I've always been very curious. How come you have such a strong tradition? I mean, it's stronger than in Finland, even though we are relatives and we have the same kind of culture traditionally. But why is it that you guys, like you mentioned, that you have less than 2 million, and still it's so strong?
Maybe because of song festivals, because it started in a way. It's a little bit like a German thing, this singing together, and we had this German influence more in Estonia than you had in Finland. So this is maybe why.
I also think that actually the influence was also in Finland, but I think this is one point, but I think that just if we look at the times that differs Finland and Estonia, then our roads go apart since the Second World War.
Yeah.
And bad times keep people together and keep bringing people together.
Yeah.
Because there is nothing, if there is not much left than a hope, then it's just a very strong power. When you have a cozy home and everything works fluently and you don't have nothing to complain about, then maybe the power of bringing people together is not so strong.
Yeah, like the black people in America, they have really strong singing tradition, and it all goes to that.
So it's like
showing
that we still have the identity and we know who we are, and we're never gonna go anywhere, and it's like kind of showing this feeling out. And thanks to that period, actually, that was so terrible, I guess. the singing tradition has come through it, and I think it won't die anymore. Hopefully it won't. Because now the new generation who is not born in Soviet Union,
Right.
to them it is already like a different kind of tradition,
Right.
or maybe a little bit different feeling from when you look at it from outside. But still, when you ask a 14-year-old girl today, like what kind of songs you liked mostly at the festival, or what were the most powerful moments, then usually the songs about the country and father's or mother's land. So it's quite a special thing about that. But still, even the young children or teenagers think the same way, that it's like overwhelming feeling that we have this our own thing, and we're so happy about it. Yeah, it's a very strong thing.
Yeah. So what have you learned about doing the folk stuff and the choir stuff that you bring into jazz?
Improvisation. Yes.
That is big part of choir singing, is it?
Not choir singing, but the runo singing, and in folk odetical folk tradition. It's like
Okay.
for me, when I grew up, I thought it's normal. It's a normal thing. Like my mom improvised.
It's like freestyle
Yeah.
rapping.
Yeah, you just bring out new lyrics every day, and you instantly sing about what you see. And then for me, what I brought along into jazz is that I never studied violin, but I was forced to play improvised melodies.
On violin.
Yes, because my mom told me that the kantele and other instruments are already playing the melody, so you have to play something else without even knowing the instrument. So I started out just playing, D and G, and then started improvising something by ear. I still don't know how to play the instrument, but improvisation is so folk more than it could be.
But that kind of situation, it makes you very brave and bold that you are not afraid. Any instrument is basically a way to make music in some way.
Definitely.
Yeah, that's a great thing, really, because I mean, if I would think that I would pick an instrument and start to learn it,
But when I was
freaks
so
me out.
young, when you give this instrument to a 7-year-old or 8, I don't remember how old I was when I had the violin.
Yeah,
But so it's just, as a child, you don't think it's unnormal to do this, because you don't have those weird issues in your head, like
Right,
what is
yeah.
right and what is wrong.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But it's very interesting that you come from really the deepest roots into the jazz, but you are also going really way out and using the really latest cutting edge technology in your show. So what are the hardest and, on the other hand, easiest parts of combining those opposites?
Well, I personally think that there is so much more room in this modern technique world, because I'm using very old guitar pedals, and so I'm still kind of old school technical equipment user. But I don't necessarily use them all the time. I do quite a lot of music without it as well. But it's just a nice color to use if you have the idea. And if I hear some melodies or some sounds in my head that I need to take out of those machines, then I just do it. But I don't use the machines in purpose. Like if I don't have a feeling of using it, I don't use it just to show the machine, that there would be no point.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't use it all the time.
So it's your way of using machinery is also kind of improvisatory.
Yeah, sometimes it's improvisationary, and for maybe some moments during the concert it's planned, but
Okay.
not all the time.
Right.
But yeah, I like to have fun, and this is like a fun tool.
Fun
Yes.
girl, I like that. I really do. How many different bands or setups you have projects going on at the moment? Here you are as a duo with a bass player.
Mm-hmm. Here I am with Mihkel Mälgand, but my own music I do in different like sizes. It's a duo, then it's a trio, quartet, a quintet. So, but more active bands besides those are also Estonian Voices, and then we have a band with Jaak. We're doing Veljo Tormis folk music arrangements, and then Avarus Ensemble, which is more modern classical sounding, small orchestra.
Okay.
And then did I say already? I don't know what did I already say. Some, let's say 5-6 bands are like very active, and
Okay.
the rest is like project-based thing.
Okay.
Like different collaborations that sometimes bring out, like with Tanel Ruben, the drummer Tanel Ruben Quintet. Now we had some concerts this summer, but we don't necessarily tour all the time. And there's a couple more like that.
Yeah. Are they all different people, or is, for instance, your bass player Mihkel, is he playing with your other bands?
Well, he sometimes has played also in the quartet, and he also plays in the quintet. But it's I don't know even like what would I wouldn't say that I necessarily always work with bands. So like for instance in this November I have a very big choir piece coming out,
Right.
with Estonian Philharmonic Chamber Choir, and this also is those kind of projects that actually take a long time out of my musical time.
Right. Yeah.
So it's like so writing a 45-minute piece and then working with the choir, it's maybe even more time consuming than doing a band somewhere. So I have just a lot of things, and the bands are always kind of there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That must be very inspiring, because you have so many different things. You know, they kind of feed each other, I think.
Yes, I think so too.
What are the best points in the duo? The strengths?
Well, we have very much freedom. You would say that why don't you do it alone then? Then you don't have to like consider anybody anymore. Well, alone, it's the fun part goes smaller. So I like to interact with another musician.
Right.
And but with the duo, it's maybe some grooves that you have to make work without drums and a lot of instruments are just very fun to make work just with two musicians. And it's like, this is one thing that I like about this duo, that some groove moments that you make work without those other instruments is nice. And also, the freedom of making the sound last and giving the sound the space. Yeah, this is what I like in this.
Okay. Who are your favorite singers?
That's a terrible question, because I don't have
I
any
have to ask
favorite
that.
singers.
You
But
must
I
have.
was the only singer that I have been a true fan of ever. Like really big fan. When I was 12, then Michael Jackson visited Estonia. And this was a very big thing. I followed every news, like in papers and
Really?
all the posters and everything. So Michael Jackson is one person that I have truly been a fan of. Yeah.
So do you reckon that he has influenced your singing in some way?
No.
It was totally different things.
No, I think he hasn't influenced my singing, but who knows? Maybe subconsciously somewhere. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Jaak, let's hit you. Heavy Beauty. I like that band. You know, the name is very good. It reminds me a lot of the original jazz rock. You know, that happened before they came up with fusion. 60s, very late 60s. Is that like a conscious decision of the band to take that kind of line?
No. I know Liudas Motskunas very, very long time, and we have played a lot together.
Okay.
And he got a bass saxophone maybe 5-6 years ago.
Very rare instrument.
Yes. And Liudas is so good to play on big instruments. I remember already when we went together to school in Copenhagen, he played sometimes baritone. I said, you play great all the horns, but this, I really like it. and then he bought bass saxophone, and we jammed in Tallinn, and I just thought this is great, and this is really like a rock sound, and we jammed actually I think a couple of days and recorded recorded everything, and actually some tunes came out from that. And then I had in mind those very nice Estonian rock musicians, Henno Kelp on bass and Andrus Lillepea on drums, who are able to improvise very well, and I thought, how about putting Liudas with his bass saxophone in this context, and we jammed, and it worked fine. It was I was a little bit afraid that maybe it's too loud for a bass saxophone, but Liudas has been really strong to fight with all this rock noise. So basically this is how it happened, and I think, as in all my other groups, my plan is that everybody remains themselves. If we do a band, I think it's great if people are different, so everybody is expressing their what they want to do, and then we try to find a common part of it. So Liudas sometimes it's really heavy improvisation, and sometimes we really keep some very old school rock.
Yeah,
and that's okay, because this comes from the musicians.
Yeah, the rhythmic part is very strong. You get very, very funky sometimes, and you also, like you said, you really know how to rock. So did you talk about the rhythmic context of the band when you started? That what kind of rhythm thing you want?
No, we didn't talk at all. No, but I like to work with musicians I trust. So if we do something, then it's up to them or up to everybody, and how we play it, that should be great. And we rarely discuss anything actually. And I think if we don't like each other's playing, then we just don't play more. But so far we have played, so I think it's fine.
Okay, yeah. But do you see my point about jazz, rock,
Absolutely,
and fusion?
Yes. No, but of course we can talk about it from another angle, because I'm now really into Hendrix. Somehow when I was young, I was a jazz guy, and I knew Hendrix, and I had a lot of respect, but somehow it didn't touch me so much. But last years I have really listened to his music a lot and read books about him and checked him out, and I think this end of 60s rock, like Hendrix, this spontaneous way of playing rock, this is what I really like.
Yeah.
And I think in a way Heavy Beauty maybe reflects to that rock shouldn't be in boxes, or it shouldn't be too clear what is going on. It should be also happening on the spot. So this is what I like the most in rock music also.
Listen to this guy, all you rock musicians out there. He's really saying like it is. I absolutely agree with that, because that kind of freedom and a sense of danger, that's very essential, I think. But listening to Heavy Beauty, I also noticed that you guys don't shy away from romantic feeling, when you get that somehow from you. Are you romantics at heart?
I don't know. I'm not sure. We must ask everybody. I don't know. I'm not maybe very romantic.
But there are some very beautiful parts and very emotional.
Yes, but I'm also not afraid of melody. Or I think it's. I also talk now when talking about jazz. I think jazz playing standards is about playing melodies. So yeah. I think melodic playing is nothing bad, which of course some improvisation players avoid. So I don't know. I don't have a conception about it. So
yeah. Sometimes I do feel that there are some free players who think that they are like cheating if they play real melodies, which I find funny, because if you play free jazz, I think it should be free.
Yes. Yeah, we have talked about it also actually, but I think whatever feels right is right, and if you're able to express it, then that's great. I think always the biggest problem is to to be able to express everything you want to express. But this is the trickiest part of an improvisational musician.
Who are your favorite guitar players?
I have so many favorite guitar players.
Say 5 most
5.
important.
Wow. Well, okay, I think in jazz maybe it all came with John Scofield and Pat Metheny and Bill Frisell, of course, and Mark Ribot I really like very, very much. Hendrix, of course, from rock. And for example, I think in Europe there are many great players. In Germany there are John Schroeder, who's a very nice guy. Kalle Kalima, who's in Germany now, but he's a great player, and Frank Möbus and in Finland Teemu Viinikainen is very nice, and Raul Björkenheim, who was my teacher at Sibelius Academy. There are many inspiring guitar players.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kiitos paljon.
And here we have Kirke Karja, you know, the last of the 3 Estonian artists who arrived a little bit late, so that's why she is here alone, but no problem. You started originally as a classical pianist. When and why did you get into jazz?
It was probably 10 years ago, because this drummer who's actually in my quartet is brother of my good friend. And then suddenly I was in this company where people were playing drums and guitar and bass and so on. And they made the band and they needed somebody to play keyboards. And then they invited me. And so it started. I started to enjoy it a lot, and now I can't get rid of this addiction anymore.
What was it? Because when you are classically schooled, you know, it's a totally another world, and then you found yourself in the other situation with. Was there a lot of improvisation, for instance, because that must have been kind of new to you. How did you feel about that? Did it feel like natural to you right away?
No, in the beginning it was really, really difficult for me. And I even wrote my solos. And then I thought that, okay, I have to play it exactly like I planned. And then I still failed. And like first 3 or 4 years, I felt all the time that I'm failing so much. But then suddenly something changed. I think it happened after I went to listen maybe Raul Björkenheim, I guess maybe it was him, or at least some concerts where people like didn't seem to care about mistakes, and then my attitude also changed, and I started to love mistakes, and. But in the beginning it was like really difficult. But also there are like many things in common if we're talking about classical music and jazz music, because I think that, like all the sight reading that I have, it comes from classical background, and all the sound is actually like coming from this another world, and
Yes, I was just going to ask you that. About the very thing that you mentioned, that you have taken influence from people like Stockhausen and Eduard Oja, who is a modernist classical composer from Estonia. Do you see some kind of kinship between those people's music and that kind of music in general with free jazz or modern contemporary jazz?
It can be, because the aesthetics is, it can be quite similar. And if you're talking about music in general, then in a way it's impossible to talk about music like generally, because there are so many little things that from what we build the music. For example, Stockhausen and his intervallic approach. For example, and his chords. These are like really modern, but this is only like one part of his style. Well, I'm actually talking about one certain piece at the moment, but we can talk like this about like every composer or every improviser, every jazz musician that we are. Well, there are some famous essays written about the death of author, for example. I really love the one that Foucault wrote. And the idea is that if you're an author, then maybe you even don't exist because you use all those ideas that already somebody else has written or said or whatever. So music is really exactly the same to me because at the moment I think that every piece that is created, it contains something that has already been for so long time. So this is all like really, really connected. Okay. And sometimes it's like easy to see those connections, but sometimes it's difficult. The roots can be same, but the result can be like totally different. I don't know anymore if I answered to your question.
Yes, that sounds really interesting. But I gather from that all kinds of musics are basically on the same level for you.
Yeah. Well, I listen all types of music. In summer, my favorite concerts where I went. On one evening, I went to listen Baroque music with Baroque violins and so on. And next day, I went to listen Usher. You know this?
Yeah.
Usher.
Rhythm and blues style, modern.
Yeah, and I enjoyed them really a lot because it doesn't matter if what's the genre. If it's like really well done, then that's already, it has to be like this, I believe.
Okay. I've noticed in your music that you like to juxtapose like opposites or very different things. That's kind of your special feature. Tell me about that, or us about that. What are you aiming at by doing so? Why do you like it so much?
Oh, that's a good question. Nobody has ever asked something like this from me. But when I'm composing, then usually I'm not thinking about one tune. It should be some kind of dramaturgical development. And I know it's a little bit boring thing maybe to compare these days, but I'm thinking about some kind of, not a movie, but it has to be like, it has to develop and it has to be like cut it with a knife or something that...
You mean there has to be dramatic changes?
Yeah, or at least when I'm in audience and when I hear something like this, then well, that's what I feel. I feel that it wakes me up like all the time. So that's one of the things I try to do with audience when I'm on the stage. I don't know if it works, but that's the idea.
Right. Well, what do you feel are the most important things in music?
Maybe nowadays it's a little bit difficult to understand the importance in music or importance of music at all, because it is everywhere. I had one really interesting situation a few weeks ago when I had concert in one place where concerts usually don't happen, and then the audience was like really excited about this because for them it was like real event. Everybody were wearing their best clothes and so on. But in bigger cities, you actually can't see that often because music is like part of our daily life. I mean, we hear like all those noises and all those sounds like all the time. So
advertisements and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So I think that maybe the importance it should give something for you. It shouldn't be just that noise. It shouldn't be some beat that you like to listen while you're running. No, actually, this is also, well, there are like all different kinds of musics, like
many.
plural, and they all have like different purposes. So it's a really tricky question.
Yeah, it is. It's very deep, but that's what I'm getting at.
Yeah, I think I can't answer to that question.
I give you an easier one.
Nice.
Who are your favorite pianists?
Pianists. Kaja Draxler. I love what she does.
Is she classical?
Jazz pianist. She's Slovenian, but I think she's living in Amsterdam at the moment. Then some Norwegian pianists I really love, for example, Eyolf Dale. And of course, Tigran Hamasyan. He's great. My own piano teacher, Kristjan Randalu. He's my main influence, and I'm really trying to sound different. But sometimes when I'm playing, then I hear that I have been listening. He's playing too much, maybe. Agi Rissanen, of course. Agi Rissanen.
Yeah. Wow, that's nice. But it's interesting that you all these, they are very fresh names. Generally speaking, it's not like the usual jazz piano players.
I think I have been listening Agi Rissanen way more than Chick Corea, Herbie Hancock, and Keith Jarrett all together.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, that's really nice. Thank you.
Thank you.